Imagine a world teetering on the brink, two superpowers locked in a dance of dread and ambition. For decades, from the ashes of World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union faced each other across an ideological chasm. On one side, the promise of individual liberty, free markets, and democratic ideals. On the other, the stark vision of collective ownership, central planning, and a single-party state. This was the Cold War, a conflict waged not with direct military confrontation between the giants, but through proxy wars that bled nations dry, a terrifying nuclear arms race that held humanity hostage, and a relentless psychological battle for global hearts and minds. The air itself seemed charged with an existential dread, a constant awareness that one wrong move could trigger an unimaginable catastrophe. Every scientific breakthrough, every Olympic medal, every space mission became another front in this global struggle for supremacy. But what if, against all odds, the unthinkable had happened? What if, in this grand, perilous game, the United States had actually lost the Cold War? This isn't a tale of invasion and conquest in the traditional sense, but rather an exploration of a different kind of defeat, one rooted in the insidious erosion of power, influence, and spirit. We're not talking about Soviet tanks rolling down Pennsylvania Avenue. Instead, picture a slow, agonizing decline, a profound ideological or economic capitulation that reshaped the very fabric of American life and its standing in the world. How could such a monumental shift have occurred, challenging our deeply ingrained perception of historical inevitability? Let's delve into the plausible divergence points that could have led to such a catastrophic outcome. One potent scenario involves a prolonged and severe economic depression gripping the United States. Imagine the immense financial strain of sustained Cold War spending, coupled with internal policy missteps, leading to widespread unemployment, social unrest, and a dramatic loss of global economic leadership. This isn't just a recession. It's a structural collapse that leaves the nation vulnerable and disillusioned. Another critical path to defeat could have been a decisive technological stagnation. What if the Soviet Union had truly gained an insurmountable lead in critical areas, perhaps in advanced computing, space exploration, or military hardware that the US simply failed to counter effectively? Picture a world where Sputnik was not just a temporary shock, but the harbinger of a permanent technological gap, leaving American innovation trailing far behind. Then there's the specter of political fragmentation. The Cold War was also a battle for hearts and minds within nations. What if internal divisions, fueled by social inequalities, political extremism, or profound disillusionment, had torn the United States apart? Imagine radical movements gaining significant traction, exploited by external adversaries, leading to a weakening of democratic institutions, a loss of national cohesion, and ultimately, a nation too fractured to stand strong on the global stage. Finally, consider a series of devastating defeats in key proxy conflicts. If Vietnam had been even more catastrophic, or if the Korean War had ended in a more definitive loss, or if the struggle in Afghanistan had drained American resources and morale to an unbearable degree, the cumulative effect could have been disastrous. Each defeat would chip away at US credibility, project an image of weakness, and empower adversaries, leading to a cascade of geopolitical setbacks. The immediate impact on American society in any of these scenarios would be nothing short of cataclysmic. The psychological shockwaves would ripple through every household. A nation accustomed to victory and exceptionalism would grapple with profound disillusionment, doubt, and a questioning of its very identity. Politically, the landscape would be unrecognizable, marked by instability and a desperate search for answers in a world turned upside down. This is not just history. It's a chilling exploration of what could have been, a stark reminder of the delicate balance that shaped our present. The world map would be drastically redrawn, reflecting a new geopolitical order. A weakened United States would inevitably create a vacuum, allowing the Soviet Union to expand its sphere of influence with unprecedented ease. Imagine the Iron Curtain extending far beyond Eastern Europe, consolidating power across vast swaths of Asia and Africa. Nations that once looked to Washington for leadership and aid would find themselves aligning with Moscow, either by choice or by necessity. The vision of a truly global communist bloc, once a distant threat, would become a chilling reality. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, the cornerstone of Western defense, would likely dissolve or become a mere shadow of its former self. Without a strong American backbone, European nations, facing a resurgent Soviet power, would be forced to make difficult choices, either appease the new hegemon or attempt to form fractured regional alliances with little hope of success. New global alliances would emerge, undoubtedly centered around the Soviet Union and its satellite states, effectively isolating the former United States on the world stage. American exceptionalism, that deeply held belief in its unique role and destiny, would be shattered, replaced by a sense of profound marginalization. Domestically, the transformation of the United States would be equally stark. The economic realities would be brutal. Picture a nation burdened by immense national debt, its industrial heartlands hollowed out, not by foreign competition, but by internal decay and a lack of innovation. Industries might be nationalized in a desperate attempt to stabilize the economy, leading to a shift towards a more centrally planned system, a stark departure from its capitalist roots. The vibrant consumer culture would fade, replaced by austerity and scarcity, a grim reflection of its diminished global standing. The political landscape would undergo a radical upheaval. The erosion of democratic norms would accelerate, fueled by desperation and a thirst for order. Increased government surveillance, once an unthinkable infringement on civil liberties, could become commonplace, justified by internal security concerns and the suppression of dissent. We might see the rise of authoritarian tendencies, perhaps even a puppet regime installed or heavily influenced by external powers, fundamentally altering the nature of American governance. The very idea of a free and fair election might become a relic of a bygone era. Social and cultural shifts would permeate every aspect of life. Education, media, and popular culture would be retooled to align with the new geopolitical reality, perhaps promoting a narrative of collective failure and the need for submission to a new global order. The loss of American exceptionalism would breed a more subdued, perhaps even resentful, national identity. Major cities, once beacons of prosperity and innovation, would bear the scars of this defeat. Washington, D.C., the capital of a fallen empire, might stand as a stark monument to lost ideals. New York City, once the financial capital of the world, would grapple with economic decline, its iconic skyline a symbol of past glory rather than present power. Industrial cities, instead of facing deindustrialization, might be forced into realignment, repurposed to serve the needs of a new economic master. Rural America, often seen as self-reliant, could become even more isolated, or conversely, be forced into a more collective, state-controlled agricultural system. The decline of American cultural influence globally would be profound. Hollywood, once a powerful projector of American dreams and values, would lose its luster. American music, fashion, and democratic ideals, which once inspired movements worldwide, would be replaced by alternative cultural exports from the triumphant blocs. The American way of life would be a historical footnote, a curiosity rather than an aspiration. And then there's the human cost. The psychological impact on citizens would be immense. Widespread disillusionment, pervasive fear, and a sense of hopelessness. Many would seek to emigrate, searching for opportunities and freedoms elsewhere, creating a brain drain that further cripples the nation. Others might form resistance movements, clandestine groups clinging to the memory of a free America, risking everything for a flicker of hope in a world that has fundamentally changed. This isn't just a hypothetical, it's a chilling glimpse into the profound fragility of history and the relentless march of consequences. The long-term global impact of such a defeat would ripple through every facet of human endeavor, fundamentally altering technological trajectories. In a Soviet-dominated world, innovation might not be driven by individual enterprise or market demand, but rather by state-controlled directives. Priorities could shift dramatically, perhaps favoring technologies that bolster state power, surveillance capabilities, or military might, rather than consumer electronics or open-source advancements. The Internet, as we know it, a decentralized network born of American ingenuity and academic freedom, might never have emerged, replaced instead by a tightly controlled, state-sanctioned intranet, limiting the free flow of information and ideas. Scientific discovery itself could become subservient to ideological purity, potentially stifling groundbreaking research that challenged prevailing doctrines. Environmental policies, too, would follow a different path. Without American leadership in global climate initiatives, and with a dominant power prioritizing industrial output over ecological concerns, the planet's health could be drastically impacted. Resource management might become more exploitative, driven by the immediate needs of a centrally planned economy rather than long-term sustainability. The very definition of human rights and freedoms would be redefined, not by the Enlightenment ideals that shaped the American Republic, but by the victorious ideology. Individual liberties might be curtailed, freedom of expression suppressed, and dissent met with swift, uncompromising force. A world with fewer individual rights, shaped by a collectivist ethos, would represent a profound shift in the human condition, impacting billions. Symbolic American landmarks, once proud declarations of liberty and progress, would take on new, perhaps somber meanings. The Statue of Liberty, instead of welcoming immigrants to a land of opportunity, might stand as a silent sentinel to a lost dream, a relic of a bygone era, perhaps even reinterpreted as a monument to the failures of capitalism. Mount Rushmore, with its carved faces of American presidents, could be seen as a symbol of imperial ambition, or worse, defaced and recarved to represent figures of the new global order. These iconic structures would not just be buildings or monuments. They would be poignant reminders of a history that diverged, representing a past that was definitively overcome rather than a triumphant present. Generations born after this loss would grow up with a fundamentally different perception of their nation's history and their place in the world. The narrative of American exceptionalism, of a shining city upon a hill, would be replaced by a story of decline, perhaps even shame. Textbooks would rewrite history, portraying the Cold War as an inevitable triumph of one ideology over another, with the United States cast as the antagonist or the misguided force. The collective memory would be shaped by the echoes of what might have been, a constant reminder of a path not taken, a future unfulfilled. This stark contrast between our existing reality and this alternate world serves as a powerful testament to the profound impact of historical turning points. This thought experiment ultimately underscores the inherent fragility of history. It reminds us that the trajectory of civilizations is not predetermined, but rather a complex tapestry woven from countless decisions, leadership choices, and contingent events. Seemingly small moments, a diplomatic maneuver, a technological breakthrough, or a single election can dramatically alter the course of entire nations and indeed the entire globe. The sheer power of ideology, the clash of competing worldviews that defined the 20th century, is laid bare in this hypothetical scenario. It reveals how profoundly ideas can shape reality, dictating not just political systems, but also economies, cultures, and the very freedoms we hold dear. This journey through a world where the US lost the Cold War is more than just a historical what if. It's an intellectual call to action. It encourages us to consider the intricate interconnectedness of events, to appreciate the profound implications of historical choices, and to foster a deeper understanding of the present and the path that led us here.